Welcome back to the Detroit is Different podcast studios. And in studio, I got a guest that this is the year we're getting a lot of people that should have been here. So if you know me and you know you should have been on here, let's connect, because usually it is not anything like not getting you here. It's just one of those things where we got to make the perfect time be the perfect time. And this brother has a vastness of many things. Some into the creative arts, definitely dealing with music, definitely also into politics and a realm of business, but always it's great to see a mighty coat in here, meaning a Northwestern high school coat. Jonathan Kinloch, how you doing today?
Doing fine this nice Sunday morning.
Yes,
right.
yes.
At least it's not snowing.
You got that right. It's the throes of January, and you know how Detroit and Michigan can
Absolutely.
be. It's in the mix. I was on the track running, and it's like, ooh, got to get them fingers, but make sure it's cool.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir. All right, so I always start these like with the roots, and there's so many different ways where I'm sure I'm going to have to welcome you back, because you've touched different realms and cultures connected to not just Detroit, but I would say Black America itself.
Yes.
But let's always start with the roots. You and your people, how many generations deep to the city of Detroit?
Well, one generation,
Okay.
2 generations at this point. Well, my parents came here
Okay.
in 1967 from New Jersey by way of Dillon, South Carolina, and Hughie, South Carolina. So my family's original roots are in South Carolina. We have family members in New York where my parents went from South Carolina to New Jersey, and then my uncle stayed here in the 60s. He was stationed here in the military, and my father came, and then eventually my mother and my older brother and sister came. So I'm the first Kinloch actually born here.
Okay. All right. So with that, I definitely, I love that you have the richness of it, but classic Detroit is different. We got to kind of unpack a little bit of that.
Absolutely.
Starting with the roots of South Carolina. South Carolina is definitely one of those states that when we think of, the Confederacy, the history of America, it's a lot of roots there.
Yes.
But definitely when we think of our people and the migration patterns, it's always usually up further east to like that New York, New Jersey. Do you still have people and family in that South Carolina space?
Oh, absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. Recently, buried my father's older sister in Hughie, South Carolina, which is about 40 minutes outside of Charleston, South Carolina. So we have a rich history and relationships in South Carolina, in Charleston. My cousin, who, when I used to go and visit my grandparents during the summer, my cousin Jerome Kinloch served 30 years on the Charleston City Council.
Wow.
And their council is structured differently from ours in ways that they have a strong council form of government, even though they have a mayor, but the council has strong oversight.
Okay.
Like their municipal judges, they're like our 36 district judges. Their municipal judges are appointed by the mayor with the approval of the council. It's just very, very interesting, as you look around the country, how different local governments work as well as state governments. So my family like I said, my aunts and cousins, and many of them live in Charleston, South Carolina, on my father's side. Unfortunately, I lost my last of my mother's siblings, and there's no more Cope Pearl and our Chester Kuzar children alive. My aunt died. She died last year in New Jersey.
Okay, and I love that you uplift that as this kind of goes into like a preface of where we're gonna go, but here in the city of Detroit with the new mayor and everything, this is the way Detroit is chartered through Michigan, a very executive-run municipality, and it's different structures. Nowadays, we're like city managers, and as you said, like the strengthening of a council. But when I think about you got some family that was in Charleston, South Carolina for 30 years, that means that when we think of South Carolina, I know it's always uplifted so many things of like, that was one of the last states to wave the rebel flag, but it's also a lot of organizing from Black families. And it sounds like your family was in the mix of a lot of that, especially for 30 years and the tenure. Like that city Boy, I can only imagine the way that people kind of just knew. You know, you see a Kinloch, it's like, okay, he can help us and be a gateway to something.
Yes, yes.
Mhm.
And so my cousin was as I got involved here
Mhm.
in Detroit in the early '80s,
Mhm.
started Weber Middle School.
Mm.
Mary Bryant and
Wow.
Dr. Harvey, who said I can't, and so I got
Mhm.
involved in the student council
Mm.
over at Weber Middle School.
Mm.
And so they used to have elected officials come through and talk about what their roles and responsibilities were.
Mhm.
And so I went from middle school and then,
Mm.
like you said, to Northwestern,
Mm.
where I was continue to be involved in the student council. But in middle school, Gloria Cobbin, who was our school board member
Mhm.
at that time, she used to take me to the Democratic Party meetings.
Wow.
And I had met Erma Henderson at one
Mm.
of at Northwestern, and then in
Wow.
high school, she was on television saying she needed
Mhm.
help and this, that, and whatnot. And in ninth grade, I just caught the bus, went downtown to the Palms building,
Mm.
and first I went to the city county building,
Mhm.
and that was my first time going in there to see to Miss Henderson's office, and they said no, they're over at the Palms building. So I
Mm.
went over to the Palms building and started, and they put me to work volunteering. Yep.
Wow. Okay, so we definitely gonna get to that because my mama Irma definitely has a lot of roots to a lot of things in the city of Detroit. Really, when you look at uh, many ordinances, a lot of like so much of Irma Henderson's leadership and footprint is inside a lot of what happens now with city
New
politics. You would be shocked and surprised. And that's like from the political level. But when it came to like even what was happening with organizing, I mean, her roots that even tied to being part of the people in Black Bottom,
Yeah.
bringing, Paul Robeson to the city of
Yes,
Detroit. And
yes.
a lot of this, like, it just carries and moves on. I'm aware because my
Amazing.
godmother, rest in peace, Joanne Watson, and also
Absolutely.
Orthea Barnes, and she, your
Great
mama,
friends of you and children of her as well.
yeah,
Yep.
she had a relationship with so many um women that that definitely were elders and mentors to me, but with even like her women's conference that carried on and continued for years, like
Yes.
70s through the 80s and even into the 90s, became like a gateway for so many women, a lot of Black women, but not exclusively Black
Right.
women, to engage in what leadership in the city of Detroit would look
Yeah,
like.
Penny Baylor and Kermit Baylor, particularly Penny Baylor,
Mhm.
was very close to the council president.
Yes.
And I remember her being involved in a women's conference of concerns, and she had a youth council
Mm.
as part of the women's conference
I
of
did not know
concerns.
that.
And so that's where I was involved.
Mm.
She made me her youth representative,
Wow.
and I would go out and speak for her, and it was an amazing opportunity to become familiar with government. While I interned for her,
Mm.
the first thing that she gave me when I came into the office was she gave me the charter of the city of Detroit.
Wow.
I'm in high school. She told me,
Mhm.
I want you to read that and I want you to explain it to me. Explain it
Hilarious.
to me. So
Hilarious.
I'm like, what the hell? And so I went, read it, and explained it. And she
Uh-huh.
was very pleased with it.
Okay.
And then Dottie Battle, who was her chief of
Mm.
staff. It was just so many folks around Miss Henderson who
Mhm.
wrapped their arms around me and taught me and forced me to understand
Mm.
how government worked. One thing she did was she contacted the departments and had me to
Mm.
go around and meet every city department head
Wow.
for them to explain to me what their duties and
Wow.
responsibilities were.
Wow.
She also had me to attend commissions and boards because she had
Mm.
to had me to understand the parts and the role
Mm.
of non-elected bodies and their impact on people's lives. So I used to have to go to the police commission meetings. I used to have to go
Mm.
to the planning commission meetings. I used to have to go to the historic commission meetings and all of these various meetings and come back and explain to her what took place, but more importantly, my understanding of how these things worked.
Wow.
So it's interesting now that became an adult, and now I'm serving on these various boards,
Yeah.
and I used to attend them. The county commission,
Mhm.
she sent me over. It was right after, I didn't realize it
Mm.
then, at least. that the county commission was just formed
Yes.
after the amendment, the charter amendment, county charter amendment, creating the county commission. And I remember they were housed at the city county building, and they were transitioning and moving into the Wayne, what now the old Wayne County building.
Yeah.
And it was, so Art Carter, I interned for him, and so when I went and met him, he said, "You need to know your commissioner." So he took me to meet my county commissioner, and he then I started interning for him, and then Art Blackwell, and just understanding county government as well. Yeah.
That's deep, and I love so many of these Detroiters different interviews because they like piece together a lot of different stories when you combine them.
Oh yeah, I have a lot of them. They really.
Brenda Butler here that worked with the county executive, and like even the start of like what becomes of a lot of government that now we see and we look at like, okay, it's been here for a while, but some of these things have not been here to the point where like, you know, you can kind of touch the history and how things originate. And
Yes.
shout out to Sherry, that's the ombudsman now, and even that office coming in life, like in the 70s, what exists in these
Marie Farrell
relationships.
Donaldson. I interned for Miss Henderson had me an intern for Marie Farrell Donaldson, the late Marie Farrell Donaldson, who was the first Auditor General under the first charter, and Forrest Green was the ombudsman, and just understanding the dynamics and hearing how the dynamics of the appointment process during that time, and how Ms. Donaldson had transitioned into the ombudsman from that role. And so it's just very interesting. Not only they teach me politics and from the textbook standpoint and the structural standpoint, but they also I learned some of the operational and some of the deliberative processes associated with that as well.
Okay, I love that. And now I'm going to put a pin in that because you also touched something else in your family roots. And like I say, that Carolina usually goes up north to that New Jersey, New York area. Your family there, are they still a lot of family in that space as well?
Yes. So my older brother's children, because I became an adult, he went back to Jersey.
He was like,
so
I'm
his
going
children,
back to the
his children and grandchildren still live in Jersey. And then I have my aunts, my two, I think three of my father's sisters still live in Jersey, and then my cousin Sheila, who worked at Essence Magazine. She worked for the CEO. Oh my God, I forget for years. Essence Magazine. We know.
So I guess, man, this is
what's her name?
You have
with the braids.
Susan. Taylor. I think
Susan Taylor. Yeah. So she worked for her for years, and then it's her successors. And so she still does media and other media and other consulting in that space. Yeah.
Okay, definitely. All right. So the roots, even here in the city of Detroit, I have to ask, what neighborhood did your family start in Detroit when they made the way here?
So Second, and when my father and parents came here, stayed on Second and Myrtle. Now, you know you're Detroiter when you remember, what is the street formerly known as Myrtle? I mean, formerly known as Myrtle. Martin Luther King.
MLK.
MLK.
I didn't even know that.
So right there on the corner, in a two-family flat. And then after I was born, 6 months after I was born, they moved to the Old West Side. Old West Side. My father was attending Clinton Street, Greater Bethlehem Temple Church with my uncle, my Uncle Sandy, and so he met one of the members, Sister Gurley and them, and then they knew of a home on Stanford Avenue on Old West Side. And so my parents moved when I was 6 months old over to Stanford between Milford and Moore, which used to be called the Church Corridor. You had Hartford Memorial, St. Stephen's, John Wesley, Tabernacle, and the church is literally around the corner. Yeah.
So when you talk also about the Old West Side, the Old West Siders Association and Northwestern have a key relationship. You look at like any of those like Old West Siders alumni groups, it's like all these people went to NO or went to NO is what we call
absolutely right. Yeah.
But the West Side, at one point in time, just back to like the footprint, it ends like the city, the boundaries of Detroit extend. So like up to one point, more that I've learned even from these Detroiters different interviews, like Baseline, like 8 Mile, and like what was out there, just like forest, kind of like
farmland and swamps.
farmland and swamps. So a lot of this expands as time even goes on to settle where people are. And you all were in one of those communities, which definitely kind of uplifts, I guess, the going to Northwestern and everything.
Absolutely.
So, okay.
And so I went at one point, Detroit's borders began and end at the boulevard. Folks used to say. And Outer Drive began and also end at the river. A lot of folks did not realize that. But especially those of us who grew up on the West Side didn't realize how far the Outer Drive went around to get back to the river.
And hence, it's one of the most, for anybody that's not from Detroit, Outer Drive may be one of the most confusing streets. It makes like
it splits off a couple of places, right?
Yeah. It makes Washington D.C. Street seem like
do I go straight? Do I make a right?
Yeah,
what the heck? Right? Yeah.
But it was the outer drive of the city, hence it's Outer Drive. But now it's all in the city, so like you'll be driving down Outer Drive, and then you look up, and it's like, how did I end up over here?
Right? Absolutely. Right. Yes. That's because it'll swerve off. You follow. You think. Yeah. So it's very interesting, Detroit. But so I grew up on the old West Side. So we went to Wingert Elementary, Wingert, Weber, Northwestern, and then when we were at Wingert, somebody decided to basically began to implement the whole busing. Like I guess about 10 years later or so after the ruling, a few years later after the ruling, to the point that they disrupted our relationships and our classroom experience at Wingert Elementary, and began to bus us from Wingert, which on Milford, Boulevard and Moore Place, to busing us on to Michigan Avenue and Seacourt to Logan Elementary. And that was to create some diversity, because you had a lot of Eastern Europe immigrants who lived in that area, so they started busing Black kids from this area over to that area, and it was basically, in my opinion, it just was just disruptive, if anything. And I don't understand what I didn't see the education experience being any different from the experience I was getting at Wingert Elementary. So, graduating from Wingert, my brother likes to, Weber. Graduating from Logan, my brother, as he was running for mayor, told the story about how the utility got cut off, and that experience there, that was during the transition of Ronald Reagan. If people can remember, when Reagan came in, all of the social safety net programs were cut. You had a lot of policies out of Washington that caused for these plants to be closed and have these layoffs. And so you start seeing the plants close, automotive plants closing. And so my father was laid off and in ways that impacted us, my mother as well. And so we went through an issue. So we eventually had moved over on Kentucky and 96, and then attended Cordis, and then finished up, went to Noble for a few months, and then went over to Weber after we moved back over into our old neighborhood. So that's the journey, and there's a lot that went on during that time. But God is good, and God has always protected our family.
That's beautiful. And as you uplift that, other things to definitely speak to, that relationship of a lot is we're looking at another president impact a whole lot of how things function currently with Donald Trump, but definitely Ronald Reagan's approach to how he went about running in politics was, as I think, like really the start of people using more of that term, dog whistling. So dog whistling, if you got a dog, you blow the dog whistle and only the dog hears. And it's similar to like a lot of like the McCarthyism that was a lot more like a Orrin Hat, like Strom Thurmond and all these like more staunch segregationists. The Ronald Reagan was able to, and when I say him, like a lot of like that original "Make America Great Again" machine, because that was a Reagan slogan first. We're like taking how do I put this? Like, they were taking a lot of the points that they felt like, okay, we can't say that explicitly now because it'll have people thinking, nobody wants to feel like they're a racist, and like put that into like the concepts of like trickle down economics and um a lot of the rhetoric that built up to this. This is also kind of real pivotal even into the city of Detroit, because that Republican convention that eventually like puts Ronald Reagan into the forefront of like leading the Republican Party, similar to the Democratic convention where Barack Obama spoke, that I think thrusted him into the lead to become the president of the United States. That took place here in the city of Detroit. And I don't
1980
know
nomination
if a lot
convention.
of people kind of know that that was at Joe Louis Arena in the city of Detroit. And he's speaking like really directly into a lot of what's happening in Detroit politics, dog whistling towards the figure of Coleman Young and his relationship with Jimmy Carter. So I know I'm giving you all a lot of information, but this plays a key role even into the next thing that I'm going to say, because it strips away a lot of things that were standard in education, things that were standard in the ways that businesses function and definitely families function. And this directly hits our alma mater, because Northwestern up to that point in time it's always uplifted, like Ray Parker Jr. Northwestern's relationship not being so far from from where Motown was. This was just a known thing that we would hear. It would be like you would graduate from Northwestern and have the opportunity to go on tour with Motown. So it's like you just learned saxophone from high school, and you literally could possibly end up touring the world with
Mr. Rogers. Remember, he was the band. He absolutely had those relationships.
Mhm.
So it's interesting you speak of that because, see, Northwestern being down the street, Motown had a very close relationship with Northwestern when I attended it in the 80s. They would coordinate with the various principals, Miss Leslie and various other principals down through the years to bring those artists through Northwestern, because many of those artists, as you can recall, went to Northwestern. And so they would stop by and we began to build a relationship. That's where I first met Esther Gordy, Esther Gordy Edwards, at Northwestern. And who knew that down the road, like you mentioned, that my life would pivot and cross over into the whole entertainment industry. And she was very, very helpful, because when artists would come to Detroit, I would always take them by Motown Museum, and she would give them a personal tour of the museum. And then her granddaughter would also assist at that time. So it was Motown, like you said, it had a very important part in place at Northwestern's in Northwestern's history.
Yeah, definitely. And even as I say, the interviews, you can combine them. So watch that Jar McKinney interview, because even Harold McKinney and all the jazz artists as well. So it was not just Motown, it was the jazz artists, it was some blues artists, like a lot of the strength of the music department.
James Carter, we graduated together.
It would be right there in the mix at NO, and they would be, like I say, taken across the world from those talents, which that kind of drives me into, I know your history into music, and you just share so many of like the internships and the politics and everything. How do you get involved in the music industry?
Well, so I was working at, I was working for the state senate, and my one of our family members was dating a young lady whose father owned Trend Industries, which was an automotive supplying company.
Okay.
And so I had just worked for the state senate. And so at that time, the county commission, my commissioner, Clarence Young, nominated me for the Wayne County Planning and Development Commission. At that time, I was 18
I was gonna say,
years
how
old.
old were you?
18 years old.
Yeah, I was like,
and so I was appointed to the Planning Commission representing industry.
Wow.
And so because I was the government liaison for Trend Industry, Mayor Young had and Fred Martin recommended me to Charles Woods.
Wow.
And so he put me in that role over at Trend Industries. So one day, a friend of mine was and I were driving down Woodward, and this song came on called "Just Can't Handle It." And I was like, "Oh yeah, I like this song." And then he said, "They coming to concert." I said, "Oh, who are the group called High Five?"
Mhm.
And then I said, "Oh, let's go to it." And then also,
Mhm.
Tony was coming. And then so I contacted. I said, "You know what? I want to give them a key to the city because a
Okay.
few years earlier I arranged for Mayor Young to give Janet Jackson the key to the city."
Okay, wait, time out. We're gonna come back to that story
Yeah.
too,
Oh
but
yes.
just know I gotta get to that story, but
Yes.
continue.
Yep, and so
Uh,
so then, so I reached out, to Mayor Young,
mhm,
and I asked him if he would give them the key to the city,
mhm.
and he says, who is Tony?" And I'm not giving no name. I'm gonna give it to Tony. Stop bothering me with this blank, blank, blank. I told you this, that, and the other. And then so he's like, call Fred and to Fred. So then Fred Martin, I talked to him and he said, no, the
Uh,
mayor's not gonna know that, all this, that,
hilarious.
and the other and
Uh-huh.
stuff. And then I said, okay, get him a Spirit of Detroit award.
Okay,
So I called Gil Hill, who
okay.
was the president of council at that time. And it was, yeah, I did that. And then I said, you know what? I'm going to tell you, basically
Mm,
organize a whole day for him.
mm,
And so I asked my boss for a budget. And so we had a limousine.
mm,
And then we also had, and so then I called Steve Soul Food.
mm,
And so he had arranged for us to, have
mhm.
a room there to eat.
Okay.
And then I reached out to Esther Gordy.
Mm.
And then so I organized a whole day for him. Then
Wow.
so I said, we gonna need a police escort. So I
Mm.
reached out to Fred Martin and asked this, that, and the other. And he said, why you keep bothering us that stuff there? The
Hilarious.
mayor, I'm checked with the mayor, and the mayor
Mm,
said it was okay. And then so
okay.
he had Ron Fleming, who was the head of his security, basically
Mm,
worked with us that day.
okay.
So Ron and Rodney Fresh and all of them,
Mhm.
came out and
Okay.
basically would served the security for the group and
Okay.
that day. And they were so impressed with the way that I had organized all that. They asked if I would be willing to go out on the road as assistant road manager,
Wow.
and that if Ron would be able to go out as head of the security for they're getting ready for Budweiser Superfest.
Okay, wait. Now I'm gonna ask you this question from the lens of something that shout out to my guy comedian CP. He was just talking about this like at one point in time when opportunity presents itself. So when that opportunity presented itself, as this is definitely like a culmination of places you've been, things you've seen, relationships you've had, but you're also you're very young in reference to all of this. In a lot of ways, I assume like you're the age of them or maybe even younger than some of the guys. Um, how did you what was your perspective towards the offering of that opportunity, A, and then B, how do you how did you like assess that this is something that I think I have the skills and the confidence to execute?
I remember when that offer came. I didn't know anything about the music industry other than
Mhm,
listening to radio and then what stories I've heard about Motown and
mhm,
and various people who was part of that Motown experience
mhm.
who I had come in contact with. So that was the extent of my like, understanding of the music business, and so but I saw it as an opportunity to travel and so the road manager and the manager was explaining stuff to me what the experience would be like,
Mhm.
and and it was something that was interesting. But the biggest thing I had to make a decision was to take time away from school because I was attending Wayne State at that time, so I had to
Mhm.
decide whether or not what I wanted to do then. So I take some time away from school. So I did decide to go on the road, and
Mhm.
then Ron Fleming got permission from the mayor to go out on the road. Initially, Stanley Knox had denied the request,
Mhm.
denied the request, but Mayor Young did authorize him to go out on that first tour.
Okay.
So we went out on the tour, the Budweiser Super. We went out to start on the Budweiser Superfest. We left the day of David Ruffin's funeral. So I left
the tour.
I let no, I'm saying I let no, I'm saying
Oh, you
we
went
left to
on the
go on
tour
tour. David
that
Ruffin
day.
funeral. So we
Wow.
left. So myself and Ron Fleming. So I was over at New Bethel Baptist Church, and after it left, Reverend Smith and all of them, and then went to the airport, and we took off for the tour. Yep.
Okay, all right, and also the other point, and that's an interview I got to get, but at that point in time, and really today, I think it's a little bit more not as like explicit, but definitely back then, the relationship between a lot of, I'm just being honest, a lot of liquor promotions and tobacco promotions and what would happen with a lot of these tours, it was just kind of like the stamp of like what was known.
Let me speak to that. So we went to Fort Lee, New Jersey. We was at the day in the parking lot a Days Inn. The guys had already been rehearsing. They had their wardrobe. The label had gave the tour support and the band. Everybody was there in the parking lot boarding, and the buses, because we were going to head out. And they got a call from Al Heyman, explaining to them that they were basically not allowed, that they got word that High Five could not perform on the tour because they were minors. And so that was, as you can imagine, devastating. So
Wow.
so you had the executives, Barry Weiss and Barry Weiss and the CEO of Jive Zamba and Ann Carley, who was the head of creative and A&R, were all in the management. Were trying to figure out what to do as they were talking to Al Heyman. Al Heyman did work out something, because what he did was, instead of doing us going out on a Superfest, Budweiser Superfest, he put together a whole package, a cross-country tour for the guys. So he put a hodgepodge a tour together that had us out there for basically 6 months. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, and now I have to let people know who Al Heyman is. Al Heyman is like, I love
And this
boxing.
was 1990.
Yes,
Yep.
I love boxing. So Al Heyman right now is one of the largest boxing promoters in the world. But his start of a lot of promotions really start because he was the promoter that Joe Jackson selected to do the Victory Jackson's tour that starts in Kansas City, Missouri, and then like travels the rest of the world. And from there, his relationships with Don King and others, and just navigating spaces and places, and just a heavyweight in a lot of things. And he's not as in front of the camera as as a lot of entertainment figures you would expect to be, but definitely very known. A lot of them Cleveland roots and a lot of other things, but definitely one of those people that could piece together something like what you all did. And in some ways, I mean, I assume that 6-month tour was probably more advantageous because it was probably more so catered to.
Yes, absolutely. And yep. So, and then we because we had ICM, who was the booking agency at that time as well, and he was working with ICM. He and Max Siegel. Max is doing some great things as well now. And then you have so that was the crux. That was the start of it. And so I managed High Five. And the way that even came about after the tour ended. The group wanted to. We came back home. I started working back at Trend.
Going back to Wayne State.
At Wayne State, and then you had the Ron Fleming went back to the mayor's office.
Okay.
So I got a phone call right after, I think, Christmas, when we got back. The guys were saying, and their parents were saying, they want new management because whatever, there were some issues that they had with the management, and they wanted to look for new management. And I was like, look, these guys got you all started. Y'all need to try to work things out. And they said, Kinloch, if you don't help us, then we're going to get somebody to do this and the other. And then so I was leaving to go to Jack the Rapper conference because some relationships I built while I was out on tour, and
Man,
we
oh
said we'd meet
man.
up at
Man,
Jack
oh
the
man.
Rapper.
Okay, and wait, I gotta give people that preference too. So, like, I guess if you all watch, you all watch like the 50 Cent Star series. It's an episode of the BMF show where you have at that time Big Meech meeting Tupac Shakur, and like a fight's happening at Jack the Rapper. But
Oh, I
Jack the
remember.
Rapper is similar to like a lot of these moments in history, especially with hip hop, my favorite art form. In a lot of ways, it's like, man, hip hop, it annoys me at times too, but I love it. But it is, if you're like, for anybody right now that's watching this, it's like 20, you have no idea what hip hop was like in the late 80s, early 90s. It was like a small section in the record store,
Right.
and like what it was and how you got it. It was very much like a culture, even into like connecting to it. So the Jack the Rapper was one of the first conferences of like a lot of really the underground promoters, the DJs are part of like DJ record pools. A record pool of DJs is basically like they get together and then they pass out records, and then also like the artists, the managers and I'm gonna be honest, and really this is with rap, and I think kind of like any form of entertainment. Like if you get, let's say if you got 12 people in the music industry, like in business together, and I'm gonna go as far as like any form of music business, probably 4 of them are like really like just hardcore, like really do business. Another 4 of them are like somewhere between having relationships with people in business and somewhere in the streets. The other 4 are like really like street people into the other business. And I mean, this goes back as far as Scott Joplin playing the ice cream song. So I just want to let that be known because it's a heavy cash business and you're dealing with night establishments. It's a lot of things that happen where like music and the street relationship like kind of go hand in hand. And Jack the Rapper was one of those places that had like a mix of all of this, including like the hip hop like clothing lines, and just it's all taking place there. So I just wanted to
you
that.
gave a great explanation of Jack the Rapper.
Mhm.
Yeah, Jack the Rapper and Iron Hour. Those are the 2 things conferences that you really wanted to go to in the early days.
Mhm.
And so while I was out there, so I saw Teddy Riley, who actually produced the first album,
Keep
worked on
Sweat.
the first album and stuff for High Five. And
Oh,
so
okay.
yeah,
Oh, he
did
okay, I
Just
didn't
Can't
know that.
Handle It
Okay.
and Kissing Game.
Okay,
Yep.
that okay. Now that
Yep.
now that I hear it,
And so
that makes sense that that's Teddy Riley. I didn't even know that.
So when I was flying back, he and I was talking at the airport because we were because we did some dates with him whatnot.
Okay.
And then so he then said to me that why are you looking for management? You and I can do it. And I never thought about management at that point. You know what I'm saying? I was looking because for management for them. I had set up a meeting with Michael Bivins, Michael Bivins, MC Hammer. So they were, so we flying meeting with them and stuff.
Okay.
But then he said that Teddy suggested that he and I could co-manage them.
Okay.
He said, the label, they like you, the folks there, the parents obviously, have some respect and like you. He said, so why don't you and I just do it? So,
Wow.
so we were still looking for, so I'd say.
So you were like, for lack of a better term, you saw it more as like, okay, I'm interim for now until,
Not even interim, because I was still looking for management.
Okay.
I wasn't dealing with nothing. I was just, at that point, nothing other than, them. So I was coordinating stuff. So I never thought about actually being the manager because that's a whole nother level.
Yep.
Then so what happened was, so Teddy and I started co-managing, and basically leading the setting up the second album. So working on the second album. And then you had a situation where Guy and MCA were having issues, and Aaron Hall and Teddy and all this stuff there. Because so what happened was, before I get to that part. So I got back home and I had to think about Teddy's offer about he and I co-managing. So I had to decide whether or not make that decision again. Do I stay in school and all this stuff here, or do I go into a world that I had tasted
Yeah.
and saw the excitement and the ability to, because I always wanted to own my own business growing up, and being able to work in an area that is allow for me to travel, to meet new people, and to also do some deals because the guys were about to start working on their new contract.
Wow.
And so I went to my boss and asked him if he's like, John, look, I let you do this
Yeah,
last
it's
time
like
because he
I
still
let
was
you out
paying
for
me.
this. Yeah.
Because he was still paying me
Wow.
all while I was all
So
on the road.
shout out to
Yep.
Trent.
Yep. Child
shout out
Willis, he
to
was a great man.
yeah.
He and Dave Bing had his Bing still, and then he had
Okay.
so they were two black suppliers to the automotive
Yeah.
industries. And so Charles Woods was a great man. He died a couple of years ago. And just a wonderful person. So I went. So he said, "Wait, look, I can't do that. I can't continue to pay you while you're out there carousing around the country." And then so then I talked to so I then spoke with Ron Fleming because Teddy also was looking for security and some other stuff there, and also they were going to do. Guy was going to do another tour, and then he wanted Ron to do his tour, and Ron went to the chief again, Stanley Knox, and Stanley denied it.
Yep.
And then at that point, they met with the mayor, and then basically Ron decided to retire. And so he went and started doing his thing, representing boxers and security, and built out his own security firm.
Okay.
And then I went out, moved to Virginia Beach.
Wow. Right there with Teddy.
Yep. So I basically kept my residence here. I never changed my address. I always kept my residence right here in Detroit. But I went to Virginia Beach, and so Teddy and I were co-managing, and then Harvey Austin, who was his manager, who, like you mentioned, he was a former boxing manager. If you know Teddy's history with Gene Griffin, Teddy liked to surround himself with strong folks because he understood, because he grew up in Harlem, and so there was a different dynamics of how he approached the music industry and the people he had to deal with and keep away from them.
Yeah.
So Harvey Austin was somebody who was very interesting. So eventually Teddy began to part ways from Guy, and he said, "You could do the management. You manage the guys. I'll produce, do whatever you need me to do. But you handle the management, and then because I'm dealing with this whole Guy and MCA and suing them and all the stuff there, so I got to focus on this.
Yeah.
So I started managing the guys, and then basically began to build a team. Their lawyer, who they had, William Lewis, continues to be my lawyer today.
Wow.
And then I expanded their business manager, Bert Padell, Nadell, Fine and Weinberger, introduced me to folks and met me and sat down and explained to me the dynamics of the music industry. And one thing you have to do is you want to have people who know the folks in the room. You want to build your management team with people who are experienced, along with the people who you trust. And so I built a relationship, and even today, right now, I am still have a relationship with Paul Schindler, who used to be at Grubman and Dursky and Schindler. So Paul was my lawyer. Grubman and Dursky, they had relationships with all the CEOs at the labels, and that was a key part of me being able to go on to produce. To do the deal with High Five, and even how I got the deal with Irvin Azoff. We took them from Jive over to Giant Warner Brothers.
Okay.
Irvin had started a label called Giant Records, and he was the former CEO of MCA. Also, you may have heard of a company, Live Nation. He founded, went on down the road to found Live Nation. And so learned a lot from Irvin. And then Irvin decided to get out of black music. And then I took Tony and looked to take the group over to a new label for a young man that I've known. We all knew since, all of us knew, because it was just, remember in the 90s, everybody was young and whatnot. And so all the black folks knew everybody.
Not a lot of,
right. And I was a manager and, in a group. So I knew him over at Uptown. And whatnot. And so then he formed a label called Bad Boy. So I did the deal over there with him. And then unfortunately, down the years in 2007, Tony Thompson died of a drug overdose.
Yeah, definitely the unsung of High Five is there, and it's not just High Five. I mean, like similar to like what I said, like way back to Scott Joplin, like the stories of a lot of entertainers, but definitely with music. And one of the tough things, as much of my life as I spent like, and I learned a lot from hip hop, and now I really want to get back into politics of how what you learned there helps you navigate in this space.
Absolutely.
But and it's some very close similarities in the sense of this. And it took me so long to like really like internalize in me. And so many people say, man, you should do more music and you should do that. But this is kind of how I felt in music. It's like the it, the more you are like connected to the music, the last you're in line to get paid. And that's just how I started like like it started internalizing. Like you need so many other things to come to life and manifest, meaning like, you need a venue. You need to make sure that that venue can make revenue of it. Venue needs parking. That you got to promote what's going to happen. The agent, the manager, the publicist, the people that do the sound, that do the lights, and all of this stuff. And then at the end of the day, you're at the end of the line, and you're relying on so many other things to like fall right in line for it to happen. And then the other thing that's also tough about the music industry is all of those other things that are in line, they kind of already, as you said, that like they have the relationships. So I'm not necessarily explicitly saying like, they could take any person from off the street and just put them in that spot and it will work and be a success, because that's not true. But it's tough because like just the how transactional it can be. And as an artist, you have like this deep intimate connection to what you're doing, what you love. And it's tough because you can't like, you gotta almost like create something that you love and then act as if this is the worst thing that you've ever created and put on a business hat and say, where does this business make
So
sense?
let me say this. What you have to do is first and foremost get into the music business, understanding that it's in the reverse. You have to understand it. It's the business of music.
Yes.
That's first and foremost.
Yeah.
From an artist standpoint, you can't go into it if you want to take your career seriously. You can't go into it as a fan, and you can't be consumed by all the lights and glamour. It's hard to do, because everybody's doing it. And so you think that you're supposed to do it. Everybody's smoking weed, but not everybody can handle weed, handle drugs, handle alcohol in a way that is still, and it gives them a sense of control. It creates it is like right now people say, oh, weed isn't this, that, and the other. It is absolutely a gateway drug. I saw Tony Thompson starting out smoking weed. And then, then of course they start graduating to other stuff because everybody else is doing it. You have to be yourself and not be nobody else. You have to know who you are. And you can do all you can, as a manager, you can do all you can as a parent, to keep people away from drugs, away from things, away from the fire on the stove. But you have to have it inside of yourself, choices that you want to make that are going to be beneficial to yourself. And oftentimes people can't shake shake the drugs. But let me just say this. You can absolutely bring someone from the streets and make them into a superstar. That's exactly what they do, and that's what they did back in the day. Right now, it's not as much because they're not investing. They want you to invest in yourself.
They want to see what success you've already had,
and that's the lazy way. So that's where A&Rs used to go out and find the talent. Go to the nightclubs, find them, and then and go out, bring the musicians and the songwriters together and build a record that they, along with the artists, come up with a vision for. That's far from it. But But there is still a lot of talent, but there is an opportunity right now because of the you remember the old street where you had the street team, the street where you go out
Yeah.
and pass on those records, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
The internet is the new street team.
You got that right.
That's the new streets. The new street is the internet and all the various platforms, and various social media apps. So what I like to tell people is that you have to build a team around you. Artists should be focusing on their artistic creativity and making a record, but you have to have a team of experienced people, but also somebody in that group who will tell you no. Kanye West, I had the opportunity because I went on from Managing High Five to forming 2000 Watts Music, where we went on to produce Busta Rhymes, Janet Jackson, What's It Gonna Be, My Body, Levert, Sweat and Guilt, over 300-something songs. We went on to produce, did song deals with Sylvia Rome, with Clive Davis, so all of these various labels. So that's the thing that a lot of folks. So I didn't put my name. I wasn't in all the videos and all.
But in a lot of ways,
50% of that company, those songs are mine. So
that's beautiful. But in a lot of ways, that's what Al Heyman, very much so too. Because I mean, when you think about the figure that he is, and like even getting a picture of Al Heyman is, I don't want to say it's like difficult, but you would not think. You know what I'm saying? It's like just the personalities associated.
I learned a lot from Clive Calder over at Zamba. I remember, because everybody knew Clive Davis. Everybody knew, Tommy Mottola and all these folks there, and
Leo Cohen,
with Leo Cohen and stuff, and what's the name over at Warner Brothers, Mo Austin and all those folks there, L.A. Reid and stuff. I asked Clive. Clive was he was a billionaire, and people didn't know who he was. And he said, I said, well, you don't do interviews and stuff. He said, because if I'm on the cover of a magazine, that's one less cover my artist is able to be on. He said, the people who know me, because he didn't have cars, people who need to know me know how to reach me. And that's the way that he ran his business. I think it's very few interviews that you can Google and see Clive Calder popping up on it. Yeah, he's the one that was, that whole Jive Records. That was all him.
Yeah, and Jive was
at the forefront along with Def Jam. Yeah,
man, Jive, like the way, like the relationships and how big. I mean, man, like Jive has like multiple.
Yes.
What is it? Diamond. Records, like back to back to back to back to back, connecting with that machine. So
and Zamba. So that's how we spent so much time in England and London, Amsterdam, Germany. So I was able to travel the world because of that experience initially. And so I remember getting my passport to go to England and whatnot, flying the Concorde that no longer exists. So all that stuff, it was pretty amazing.
I mean, these are some experiences, and I do want to add it, as you say about this, and I often uplift this. I think one of the better documentaries. It's very sad, but that Whitney Houston documentary, and I mean, rest in peace to Sly Stone that just passed too. Some of the drugs end up being like I need the cocaine to wake up because of all of this stuff going on, and then I need whatever opioid I'm doing to get to rest. So like one of the examples I always speak to is DMX tells the story of like, okay, it was a manager that's like, yo, we can get something over here, get some money in Nigeria, so we can go here. And he was like in the embassy, he saw like a lady that was from America that recognized him and everything. Like, where are you going? Because sometimes you'll end up on these tours and they'll book your day. Like, it's like, hey, I'm the promoter. I booked you. You want, let's just say $100,000. Of this $100,000, $20,000 is mine. I went to these 3 record stores and that also own like these chicken places. So I need you to show up over here, take pictures with them, do a meet and greet over here, walk in the studio, say whatever on like this person's song, like almost like, hey, if I got you for the whole day, I'm booking you for the whole day. So like this form of like, as I say, it's like transactional usury can happen too, where like you land in wherever you're at and like almost like, over these 24 hours, it's going to be booked. And then if the ticket sales aren't as much as they need, it's like, okay, well, we need you to do 2 after parties. And you're like,
Well, so over there, that's why you have to have. So we had some great booking agents and folks to help coordinate that. Particularly when we went to Africa, we had security, like military guns and those things there for the times that we spent there, and we were invited by the government to go over there for the World Hunger tour to Lagos. So went to about 3, like you said, you booked us the whole day, and it was like very much so. They flew us on a plane, chartered plane, and us and. Oh my God, Kool and the Gang. It was just a host of us that was on this plane, going over to Africa, and it was that was my first time there. It was a lot of fun, but it was hot. I like to say back at the hotel room. I mean, stay with the air because it was oh my God, it was so hot there. It was like so it was,
and that's all I'm saying.
And they didn't have refrigerators, so you saw these carcasses as you were driving, and just. Cattle and so just because they didn't have refrigerators, so they would have to cut the meat, cook it, and all that stuff. So we were like, it was very
fresh,
interesting, literally fresh.
You probably that food probably so fresh. It's like you eat like a pound of ribs over there and lose weight. You know what I'm saying? You come here to America,
so the guys,
a rib.
The guys, when they went overseas, the only thing they ate was you had to be in Kentucky Fried Chicken. When they went over, they tried nothing. I was trying everything.
I
was much smaller. I was like 171 back then.
Okay,
that's how I gained all this weight.
Got you. Hey, if the world experience, and now I guess I'm jumping right into the politics because now. As I say, like I see it because I've done different things in music that there are very much similarities because and sometimes the politician, I mean, obviously is like you can be the last person to like really navigate that. And just like a music artist, you have to really rely a whole lot on a lot of people in that space, your cabinet, your staff, the people interacting with the community. You know what I'm saying? You could be the greatest politician, but you have a person that's like your community liaison that's out here cussing people out and doing God knows what. And they like, I hate them. And then it's like, I didn't even do nothing to this person, but, how did you see that, the similarities, and how did that world coming back to like some of the politics here connect?
Politics taught me and prepared me. Those years in politics taught me and prepared me for a world that is more political than politics.
Wow.
Because you're talking about millions of dollars. You're talking about the ability to change lives in ways that, same way with politics, but the music industry is, you always have daggers pointing, somebody trying to take your act, somebody trying to take your record, somebody trying to take your position on the charts.
And let me ask you this then, because this is another one thing that comes up. Mike Epps even speaking about it, but especially like in music. Why does it always seem so much like a lot of artists feel like it's a zero-sum game? Like it's like, just for lack of better name, it's like, I'm Nas, you Jay-Z. Why can't I just feel like it's enough space for both of us?
Well, I could see at that level, it makes absolute sense. But when you're trying to break out, for breakout artists, I can see that because the positions and, I mean, there's only one shot, you know what I'm saying? So I could see the competition, you having your promotion team, but and your marketing folks and you coming up with various programs to be able to position yourself to have a bigger presence and more success than that record that you may be either ahead of or just below. And so with the number one record, that potentially can speak to the longevity of your record continuing to be played down the road and adding to your catalog, which is ultimately your legacy revenue. You know what I'm saying? Adding to your generational wealth. So I can understand even at the top that you're fighting to have a number one, even if it does not go diamond. The fact that it matters a number one record, so it positions it in various different rotations when you and conversations. And then elevate that record into the history of music. And so what that does is that continues to cause it to get played and become part of what I call the penny cycle. And that's what publishing and catalog is about, that your record is getting played somewhere in the world and is becoming part of that whole formula that allows for you to get mechanicals and performance royalties. We don't do performance royalties in the U.S., so we're missing out on that piece there as far as recording artists. But for songwriters, the performance royalties. Yeah.
All right, and what's the when do you say, all right, let me jump right back into politics because the 13th Democratic, like you still have all these political relationships. I'm assuming like everybody's trying to like pass you a demo tape too. It's like
So the demo tape not as much these days. I'm very selective of how I connect. Like I'm now shifted. There's something I'm working on now that's very interesting, but this is more so on a licensing piece, and this is with Sound Me and Beam. That's something there. Sound.me. So but from the I never stopped music. I mean, I never politics.
The political things.
Political stuff. So when I was in Dallas, I supported. I had the guys perform for Ann Richards when she ran for governor. I had the commissioner, McLean County commissioner, built relationships in Dallas. Ron, what's the name from the mayor of Dallas? Helped campaigns there. Cory Booker in Newark, New Jersey, because I owned a condo in Jersey for 19 years. So I built my family. My uncle. You had my mother's brother, Harold Kuzar. He worked for the city and for a number of the mayors over the years in Jersey City. I had a cousin who was the first black municipal judge that was appointed in Jersey City. So I'm saying, New York.
Politically, you're still
always because it was
that mix.
Yeah, absolutely. So no, I continue to support candidates. Just a number of Brenda Scott here in Detroit. I supported her, Greg Mathis and folks, and so I would support folks, a number of the candidates here as I went from stuffing envelopes to helping raise money and different things and stuff. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And then as time goes and like I guess moving more politically into this space, what was that catalyst that right now, county commissioner, when that opportunity presented itself, where was you like, let me jump in this?
Okay, so keep in mind, I started out in the 13th district when I was in middle school, and then through high school, I was secretary of the Young Dems and stuff at the state party, and then I had been involved in. Remember, I interned for Wayne County Commission.
Yeah, I mean, you were like the liaison even when you were working. It was still like from a political scope too.
Yes. So even at Trend Industry, Trend Industry. So I'd always been engaged in Jack Faxon when I worked for him as for the year or so that I worked for him. Became familiar with he really educated me on how a lot of those suburban state reps and senators started in Detroit, and as they start, those districts were written every decennial census. Well, at least it used to be like that. Now you see what they're doing in Washington, how they move further and further north. And so they would like people to say, Jack, he was black with his hair afro and stuff because he was had some tint color to him, and then as he was mulatto, and then eventually after he went across, he became a white Jew after he crossed over the 8 Mile. So that was the thing there. So just hearing all that the stories there, but so look. So the music piece, I never had stopped being engaged in politics wherever I was, and I will even folks who are involved in the music industry went back then and who know me, I've always encouraged folks to, hey, look, y'all got to get involved. Even with Puffy, I would talk with him, and and then he and Sister Soldier did that stuff there, and so all of these. I always talked about the importance, especially, but white people already were activists in those public policy discussions, and it was important for our generation to start having our voices heard. So I was always when I came back full time because I moved from Texas back here. Brenda Scott asked me to serve on I'm under the City of Detroit Board of Zoning Appeals. So she nominated me to the Board of Zoning Appeals, and I served on the Board of Zoning Appeals for 9 years. I was involved in the 13th District for years, and also my role and relationship with the UAW asked me, and all because the labor unions and movement was also part of all of this, my history and story and my involvement in Detroit. So it was when the transition from Martha Scott. Martha Scott was the chair of the 13th before me. She decided not to run.
Mhm.
I always wanted to be chair of the 13th
Wow.
congressional district,
Mhm.
but Rory Gamble and Al Garrett and them
Mhm.
said, not yet, not yet.
Mhm.
And so I did not run against the previous chairs,
Mhm.
previous chair at that time when Kwame Kilpatrick was in there.
Mhm.
Folks were trying to get me to run, but I didn't do anything and don't do anything without consulting at
Mm.
least with labor movement, and particularly
Okay.
the UAW.
Mhm.
UAW and AFSCME were the two unions that I was strongly aligned with, and continue to be strongly aligned with, along with SEIU,
SEIU.
as I
Mhm.
became political director, and,
Mhm.
and love them and the
Mhm.
work that they're doing. And so I um, became chair of the 13th district after Martha Scott did not want to run. You had some groups, a number of folks running, and so we, because I've stayed engaged
Mhm.
and
And
built
I mean,
relationship.
you have, relationships as you talk about, like, that you're starting
Mhm.
that go back to like
Mhm.
the legends and the icons, like they were like in their stride
Yes.
that you have those relationships. I mean, even being as young as you are, being able to even call Coleman Young, rest in peace,
Yes.
that's,
Mhm.
rare. You
Yeah,
know what I'm saying?
absolutely. So, and I thank Fred Martin for building that
Mhm.
relationship, as well as Kermit Baylor and some of the other
Yeah.
folks, and who built that relationship. And then
Mhm.
even that's how it's interesting, because when I went to Mayor Young's fundraiser, that's how
Mm.
my brother. I introduced Robert Smith was talking to Mayor
Mhm.
Young, because I went up to talk to the mayor and stuff, and the mayor was
Uh-huh.
talking to me, and then I said, "Oh man, you Robert Smith." I said,
Wow.
"My brother loves listen to your show. On Sunday, he'd be listening to the
Uh-huh.
radio. So you're Robert Smith." And
Yep.
then he said, "Well, hey, tell him to give me a
Wow.
call." Yeah.
And
And then,
that relationship's
yeah, Mayor
grown,
Young. Mhm.
yeah, I had no idea. And then
Mhm.
when I see your brother, I'm a the next time Imma
Yeah,
definitely
so that
talk
was
about
at
that one.
The Coleman
Wow.
Young. I was standing there, and so yeah,
Mhm.
and Robert Smith says that's probably
Yeah.
one of the best things he got out of the
Wow.
situation, because
And
yeah, Mayor Young was really somebody, and Erma Henderson. They really reached out to the young people,
mhm.
and yes, you did have access to them
Yeah.
and whatnot, and it was and that was good. That it impacted me, and it helped me to understand. That one, these folks are real people that you have
Mhm.
access to, and that I too could aim. I didn't have to. My mother said it's not how you start, it's how you finish.
Mhm.
And so my mother used to tell us as we grew up with all of the challenges and whatnot, that you don't have to focus on the condition you in. Focus on just making things happen and changing your life.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
That's some great advice, and I
Mhm,
also just gotta say, even with the arc of that,
mhm,
like, right now,
mhm,
and, shout out to Sherry, she's always bringing this up,
mhm,
but, this is how the census matters, people,
mhm,
because in my lifetime I'm 43 now, but the
mhm.
13th was, like, basically all of like, it was a point in time where we had 3 congressional seats in the city of
Oh, we
Detroit
had
just
more
due
than that. We had
to
pieces, right? Yep. So people
so
don't realize. So the 13th district, and this is what people need
mhm,
to understand, and this is
mhm,
it just spills into the whole 2024.
yeah,
No matter what you do, I was told it all starts in your Democratic Party, especially if you're running for a partisan office.
mhm,
So you had the framework of it, the disinvestment, and because Dave Bing, basically, when he became mayor,
mhm,
he wasn't engaged.
mhm,
And so you had Mayor Duggan, who was focused on the state party and the national
mhm,
party. But whenever I called, he was there to support. But basically, we were able to, because the unions, the UAW, when I became chair, the UAW and AFSCME were the biggest funders and supporters of it.
mhm,
So we were able to move and do our work, and we had offices and whatnot. So we just recently got an office
mm,
when I worked out with the new chair of the state party. So we're sharing the office with the state party
mhm,
right there at the old Parkland Motors location.
okay,
So that just opened in October, and
mhm,
so we're building that out. So the party is so important because it is the framework of it is basically the framework that we should be operating from and getting people out to vote. The whole
mhm,
purpose of precinct delegates, because when you think about precincts, inside of each voting precinct, because everybody live in a voting precinct.
Mhm.
So it's my job as chair to make sure that we have a certain number of precinct delegates in each of the voting precincts within the 20 communities that are represented. But we must start making sure that people inside those precincts are activists, are people who are active in their neighborhoods, and it's going to focus on getting the votes out. We've gotten away from that, and that's what the number one priority is going to be, and that's one of the reasons why I built out the infrastructure over this last from this last mayoral election to build out the infrastructure to do what we need to do to win in these elections. Last year was a disservice for folks who basically walked away from the party and played games with their votes. Anybody who's saying that it doesn't matter who's president of the United States, you should be able to examine and look at what's going on now, and hopefully you have a change of an opinion. There's no way in the world some of the things that's going on would be taking place under a different administration. As angry as we are, as much as we disagree about the approach President Trump, there's a few things I hope that Democrats will take from his time in the White House. One, this bipartisan thing as an excuse not to move public policy that help Black people and help people in working families. This thing of must have bipartisanship is bullcrap. When you get the power, you need to govern and you need to push and find ways of, how to change people's lives. Democrats oftentimes get in office and have played footsies with Republicans in ways that have basically shortchanged the Democrats and the people who worked hard, the Black people particularly. I'm talking about Black folks. Because right now you got everybody talking about their thing, but nobody's talking about Black folks and what is impacting us. And they trying to bully us to focus on everything else other than the challenges that we have in our community. Yes, we absolutely care about all the issues that are going on, but right now our city it needs support. We got to wrap our arms around our mayor, and we need to wrap our arms around our city and find ways of addressing some of these issues: housing, crime, education. Everybody want to run for everything else. Why aren't people understanding that the school system is something that we have? Look, it is it's very sad that we're not seeing enough people pay attention and hold our education policies at the forefront the way that we should be holding them. It's just disappointing what's going on in our school system.
Yeah, I definitely.
People like to talk about state rep, they talk about city council, talk about the county commission. The school board, you have to run candidates who focus on, I don't want to hear nothing else when we start screening for school board. What curriculum do you support? What do you tell me the data that's associated with the reading scores and how you intend on addressing that?
Two solid, like, check the archives of Detroit is different, but two very solid interviews. Actually, they got the same name. One is one of your colleagues. So Angelique Mayberry Peterson, that was at the helm of the DPS-CD school board at one point in time, and Angelique Williams Powers, that's at the helm of Skillman. Both, I think, two things. And like kind of how we met was when I was leading the Northwestern's Alumni Association.
Absolutely.
And as I always uplift the idea of a lot of times that what people think is going on in schools, especially if you don't have children or have not connected to it, but what's happened even like post-COVID of, first off, the ways that students have access to a school, and also the ways that it interacts. And one of the toughest things about like a public school, for instance, is in this day and era between homeschool, online school, charter schools, these different mechanisms, public school is always going to be the one that is held accountable for where that pupil will be just because of the way that public
Public
school is
dollars, yeah.
executed in our nation. The tough thing about it is you got two variables that are very tough that I think make it almost impossible in some ways. You got first off, you need to have count days. So you need the head count so that you can get the numbers for the pupils, right? And then on the flip side of it, you need to have test scores at a certain level so you can have access to other things happening inside that school. So like the beauty of the music program, even when you were in Northwestern, was not the beauty of the music program that was in the 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
And then by the time like I get there, it's almost like do we have enough people to teach the math and the English, or a dynamic teacher that can do all? Like I always uplift that Northwestern has a planetarium inside of Northwestern.
Yes,
and
I
shout out
did
to
use a
Mr.
part of it.
Tyson that ran that for years. But
Mr. Page before him. He was the first one.
so it's like, so a planetarium, I don't know if you all like, I mean, this is just me and my ghetto reference, but like the movie The Mac, where like he's like, everybody's looking at the stars and stuff, but it's kind of like this, you see the solar system and everything inside
amazing.
Northwestern.
It is amazing.
It's been closed because now to get a teacher that can teach it, they also probably have to have a teacher that can cover like all these other points and like to make sure that the test scores are connected, right? So it's so many variables that make it difficult, but the one thing that you definitely can pour into is just by keeping more eyes on it and understanding that, this ain't saved by the bell anymore. Things are different. Some differences I think are definitely strengthened. Some differences make it a lot more difficult, but
also the thing is with all of the things that we're talking about, parents got to get engaged, or somebody in the family and the child's life, have to be involved. These kids ain't just going to get up and just do what they're supposed to do. The high absenteeism is an issue.
Very high.
And so even when we were growing up, we had neighbors, the whole community. It wasn't just your child. You just made sure that, other kids went to school as well. Get your blank up and get out here and get in the car.
And this is kind of where I think like it becomes like it's everything's kind of connected back to like I kind of started noticing this. It's so funny. I remember I was having a discussion like with the Northwestern gives like turkeys and food away. So like you start like it got to a certain point where like some of the students going to Northwestern are in like New Baltimore and Taylor, just because of the transiency of what's rented and what's access to things. And it's like, this may be closer to the parents' job. So like even centering that becomes tough. So I definitely agree. And I know we get into a wrap here, but getting more involved. I definitely, even from this interview,
I absolutely enjoyed this conversation.
I want to
it also caused me to think on a number
of things from back in the day. I want to get Detroit is Different to come and get some one-on-one with the 13th. I think that would be cool.
Let's talk about that because yes, we have this upcoming Saturday. We have a precinct delegate training and party engagement conversation this week, because we have a convention coming up in April, and in which we will be endorsing candidates to support in the
upcoming election.
Not upcoming election, but in the upcoming convention. So this is just in order to become the nominee in November for Secretary of State, Attorney General, and those various Michigan State, University of Michigan, and Wayne State Board of Governors. You have to be nominated at a state party convention. So what the party's done, and I guess over the past few years, is have a early endorsement piece to allow those candidates to be the apparent nominees to go out and raise money and go out even though they haven't officially been nominated at the convention, but at least it gives them an opportunity to go out and start campaigning, because it's not like a public election. Just members of the Democratic Party can vote at that convention. Yeah.
Okay, and I have if people want to get in contact with you before I hit you with the last Detroit is Different questions, how should they reach out to you?
Okay, they can reach out to me by calling me at 313-258-9302. That's 313-258-9302.
Okay.
My email is mi13th district district @gmail.com. That's mi13th with a TH, district at gmail.com.
All right. Now, classic Detroit is different questions. I got to always hit people with.
Absolutely.
Your very first car, year, make, and model, year you got it.
The very first car was 1988 Sprint, red.
Okay, when you get it?
I got it when I started working for the state. My father bought it for me brand new. It was like, I think it was like $2,000 or $3,000.
Okay. And how long it last? It may have been.
It lasted till I ran into a school bus.
Man.
Probably about 6 months after that, and then Nina got me a white Chevrolet Nova.
Okay, so yeah, you didn't have to go back to the bus. It's like,
right.
All right, next question. This is gonna be the fun one, really. You're the DJ at the end of the fireworks. You get to play 2 songs, Woodward and Jefferson. What songs you playing?
I'm sorry. I'm gonna play. I'm playing my because I'm associated with Kissing Game, and then also I'll play Busta Rhymes, Janet Jackson.
Okay, what's it gonna be? Okay, I like it. I like it. And we didn't even get back to that. You got a couple Janet Jackson histories.
Yes,
Demeter Joe. I want to know. All right, and last question. You could rename Woodward after one Detroiter. Who would it be and why?
I would name it after. I'm sorry again. I would name it after Erma Henderson.
I love it. I love it. You're the second person that brings up Erma, but why would you name it after Erma?
Oh my God, the history there. And then she lived in Jeffersonian for years. Yep. She, then the Coleman Young building there. And I'm just saying she was anybody who know me know Erma was dear to my heart. Yep.
And many of the people I love as well. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah.
All right. Peace.
Detroit is different.